Give it up to my homie, Combest.
I've tried for so long to ignore making a video about this because personally I believe that conversation should be ignored when it's led with misinformation and anti-vax bullshit. But it would also be a fool of me to try to act as if internet narratives and misinformation don't cross over and have real world consequences. We've seen it in documentaries like The Social Dilemma, and we've also seen it in real life, such as recently back in the beginning of the year where a bunch of people stormed the Capitol to try to interrupt our election process. In this video, I'm going to be talking about anti-vaxxers and misinformation, why they don't deserve to be entertained anymore. Because to keep it real, there's still people on the fence who may not be up to date with all the information. So I'm not here to shame you if you don't know the information, because at one point in time I didn't know the information. So I'm just here to help give you guys information to kind of combat these anti-vax narratives that you'll see online, just so that way you guys can make an informed decision on whether or not you want to get vaccinated, because getting vaccinated is ultimately a personal choice. So I'm not here trying to say this is medical advice. This is purely just giving you guys information so that way you get to make an informed decision. The first point I want to make is you see anti-vaxxers will say a bunch of salacious headlines or just come out with these random facts that they just spread so confidently as if it's just ultimate fact and truth when it's absolutely the opposite. Because remember, when we're speaking about vaccines, diseases, government, science, and human health, those are super complicated, intricate systems, and I'm not calling nobody stupid. I'm just saying that when we're talking about it, we need proper context to understand how it relates to you personally. So whenever you see a giant headline and things like that, or whenever they say that, you want to be able to ask, yo, that's mad crazy. Yo, can I see a source? Like, where'd you get that from? Where'd you hear that from? Like, yo, that's crazy. Where'd you get that from? 9 times out of 10, they don't have that. And when they do show it to you, oh, they'll just say, do your research. Don't just do your research. No, cite your sources, my dude. Tell me where you got that from, because I need to know if what you're telling me is real. Okay, because I need to know if what you're telling me or whatever study you're trying to show me is a peer-reviewed study. Because we also need to understand that when we're talking about all these studies and stuff like that, we need to understand the validity of what is a credible source. We need to understand that these are peer-reviewed sources and studies that we're looking at. That means that your study and what you did and whatever you wrote down, I can take that information, duplicate it on my own, and get the same result that you got. And if you don't have that, then we don't need to be entertaining these conversations, because you have to understand on social media is purely for entertainment purposes only. When you think about it, when has social media ever been about truth? Social media is mainly for entertainment purposes. If you believe social media, how many Armageddons were we supposed to go through? Y2K, 2012, the Mayan calendars. Hell, last year a bunch of niggas thought they was getting superpowers. Like, you got to be able to understand, when it comes to social media, you got to be able to see that why believe the truth when the lie is more entertaining? When going back to something as serious as the George Floyd protest, you had a bunch of people sharing posts and information about your local senators and who you need to contact and who do you need to message and what do you need to donate money to help these causes. But you have to remember, there was that one day where it was Blackout Tuesday during the protest, where a bunch of people were uploading black squares in their profile and they put Black Lives Matter in the hashtag, and all that was doing was cluttering up the real information so that way you couldn't find the real information. It was nice in gesture, but in reality, into the real world, it just muddied shit up. So it didn't necessarily help. That makes me want to catapult off of that point and talk to the black community. I can't speak for other communities because I'm not in those communities, but I can speak for my community and my personal experience. When I ask black people if they're going to get the vaccine, 6 to 8 out of black people are gonna tell me, nigga, I ain't getting that shit. I don't know what's in there. And that speaks to the culture of black people and how we accept information primarily through word of mouth. So a lot of times it's just a game of telephone, and that's not the best way to accept credited information, my dude. I don't want to act like I don't understand how we got to this point, because that would be ignoring all the racist history in this country. It's hard to convince people to accept something they've never been able to participate in. So I understand that. And also when people bring up these narratives and, you know, I don't want to ignore the medical history that America has had with black people, you know, with the medical apartheid and Henrietta Lacks. And one big one people love bringing up is the Tuskegee Experiment, which was actually terrible, but not for what you think. The Tuskegee Experiment was not giving black people syphilis. The Tuskegee Experiment was a poorly study done over the course of, that was actually discontinued early on, but two scientists continued to study it for 50 more years, and they just wanted to know how did untreated syphilis affect the black community different than white people, because they thought black people's immune system was different than white people. So instead of when the actual vaccine and penicillin treatment was actually available, they didn't give it to the people in the study. They actually gave them a placebo so that way they continued to have syphilis and spread it within their community, which was absolutely terrible and racist and horrible, but it's not for what you think. So there wasn't vaccines causing mass harm. So once again, like I said, you need proper context when we're talking about these type of things. And that's what really annoys me when we're talking about the medicine and the black community, because a lot of times when people want to point out the history when people want to point out the racist history, they really choose to ignore all the strides and, you know, contributions we have made from then to now. Like, we're getting better. It's not perfect. It's still racist, but we're still getting better. So let's not act like we're still living in those times. That also makes me want to move on to the point of the vaccines that are out right now. The vaccines that are out right now, mRNA vaccines that actually, people will say that these mRNA vaccines are altering DNA when that's absolutely not true. That just lets me know you probably never paid attention in science class if you knew how hard it is to actually alter the DNA of a human being. And people will try to make it sound as if, oh, the mRNA vaccines, why did they make it so fast? I don't trust it. And that's actually incorrect. mRNA technology has been worked on since the late 80s into the 90s about diabetes and other diseases. It's just also the fact of the funding that goes into the research of that was really, really low compared to the funding that went into it once we had a disease that shut down the entire globe. Now, with that being said, people want to say this is a brand new disease because it's a novel coronavirus. But guess what, my dude? The coronavirus is not a brand new disease. The coronavirus has been around for a very long time. So let's not act as if that we didn't have a SARS epidemic back in the early 2000s in Asia, in Japan and stuff like that. Like, we had those. So let's not act as if there's no data. Let's not act like there's never been data on the coronavirus, that we just had to start from scratch. No, we had information that went into this. So let's not act like these mRNA vaccines just popped out of thin air. No, a lot of work went into this. And like I just said, that's another point that goes into it. You know, they'll say that oh, this isn't FDA approved. It is FDA approved. It's approved for emergency use for everybody who was included in the trials that they tried it on, and they went through each phase of their clinical trials. And those are the people 18 adults 18 and up. That's who the vaccine can be used for. They're doing studies now on children, I believe, up from young to the age of 16, and that seems to be more effective in them than it actually is in the adults 18 and up. But that's still not out yet. So you can't try to tell me that the government is trying to do population control, but they didn't approve the virus. So it just doesn't make sense. That narrative doesn't seem to make sense when you try to say that, oh, they're trying to use population control and kill people and sterilize men and blah, 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 but also they didn't approve it. So if they wanted to sterilize and population control, wouldn't they approve it? Like, doesn't that make more sense? It just doesn't seem to make sense, and they'll come up with these headlines and social media narratives that you'll see online that just don't make sense. You have to understand how intricate and complicated these topics are. Once again, I'm not calling nobody stupid. I'm just saying the facts are the facts. It's not just simple when we're talking about diseases and vaccines and stuff like that. There's a 200-page report that the CDC released from the clinical trials. That's not gonna fit on social media. That's not gonna fit on Instagram. Like, we're not gonna be able to see a simplified version to be like, all right, I completely understand. No, it's complicated. That's why when doctors talk about it, they sound like they're not really sure, because they have to be able to speak to specifics. When you want to be able to speak to specifics, that's where things get a little bit muddy. And oh man, that brings me to one of my other talking points. Johnson&Johnson, the Johnson&Johnson vaccine, where that ended up getting paused because at the time of them pausing it, there were 6 reported cases of rare blood clots to the brain in women. And within that week, they did a 10-day pause, and within that 10-day pause, there was actually 9 more cases of it. And within that, I believe 2 or 3 people unfortunately passed away, and that's terrible. And I don't want to take away from how bad that is. My heart goes out to those people who passed away. But also, I just want to add that when we're talking about those numbers, the cases in that were out of 6.8 million administered shots. So your probability of dying from a blood clot of the Johnson&Johnson vaccine is 1 in 2 million. That's actually less than you dying from the coronavirus. That's less than you like the odds of, when you put it in perspective, the odds of that are so much lower, and the fact that it's happening to women is bad too. But if you think that's terrible, you should see what birth control is out here doing to women. So, you know, you want to be able to put things in their proper context when we're talking about it. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, I don't trust Johnson&Johnson anyway. Their baby powder caused cancer. That's not what happened there either. Actually, what happened was that they lost the case to a group of 24 women because, not because their baby powder caused vaginal cancer, it's actually because they didn't disclose all the ingredients within their baby powder, because in their baby powder used a talc, and in that talc had asbestos, and there's been studies that showed continued exposure to asbestos could cause vaginal cancer. So they didn't lose that case because they was shown and proven to cause cancer. They lost that case because they didn't disclose all the ingredients within there. So they pulled that baby powder off the shelves in America. Johnson&Johnson actually still sells that baby powder globally in other countries like Mexico and Africa. Like, they still sell that same baby powder. They just don't sell it in America. So when we're talking about Johnson&Johnson, we also have to put it in its proper context that Johnson&Johnson is a housing company that houses over so many over-the-counter medication that people can take every day, like Tylenol, Band-Aids, Benadryl. It's like Johnson&Johnson houses so many other products that you may use every single day that you don't even know you're using a Johnson&Johnson product. So we want to be able to put things in their proper context when we're talking about it. So when people just try to say these things to really scare you, they're not necessarily giving you the whole truth. There's never been a vaccine that's caused more harm than the disease that was built to fight against. I just want people to be able to take this information and make an informed decision on whether or not you want to get vaccinated, because at the end of the day, it is a personal choice if you want to get vaccinated or not. I'm sick and tired of seeing anti-vaxxers spread their bullshit online trying to scare people. It's annoying because one thing that they love to do is take advantage of the fact and act as if you don't know and they know everything and take advantage of you. That's absolutely wrong, and I'm sick and tired of it. And like I said, I think the one that's getting lost is just this basic understanding about vaccines are meant to protect others and the most vulnerable. There's people out here who have autoimmune diseases. There's people out there who have allergies and they can't get vaccinated. You might have people in your family who might be health compromised, who might have underlying conditions, so they may not be able to get vaccinated, or they might have allergies to whatever's in the vaccine, so they can't get vaccinated. So it's up to people who can get vaccinated to get vaccinated, so that way they can't contract the disease and spread it to people who can't get vaccinated and will be affected by the actual disease worse than an actual vaccination. So you get vaccinated to protect other people, and also when you get vaccinated, you prevent the virus from coming in and contracting it and mutating against whatever vaccine is out there. So right now there's this narrative of people not getting vaccinated, and now there's talks of yearly annual vaccinations. Primarily that's because we have a virus going around that's continuing to mutate as it's spreading from person to person, and it might spread to a person who might be half vaccinated. It might spread to a person, it gives the virus more chances to, the virus is going to mutate and evolve. So as it spreads from person to person, as the virus continues to spread from person to person, the virus is going to mutate and evolve, and it can grow past whatever vaccination that is currently out. So that way we have to make updated vaccines, and that's how annual vaccinations become a thing, like the flu. So if enough people get the vaccine, then we don't see the virus anymore. Hence polio, hence well, not the measles and mumps, because the measles and mumps is back, but chicken pox and shit like that. As much as I personally believe that we should be ignoring conversations that are led with misinformation, we have to be able to have the proper information to slam dunk, shut these motherfuckers up forever. So, with that being said, like the video, comment down below, let me know your thoughts on all the topics that I talked about. I'll try to link all the sources of where I got my information from. I'll put that down in the description down below. If you have another study or you heard something that could counteract something that I said, please let me know down below. I'm all here to read for it. You don't subscribe to the channel because I don't plan on talking about this ever again. This is hopefully a shortened version of a 55-minute video that I did ranting on, getting into the super specifics of things. So, that being said, I'm done. Peace.